License and registration.
I'm carrying federal credentials. Here's my ID and badge.
Yeah, What is this supposed to be?
Special Agent Marcus Hill, FBI. I'm off duty heading home. You pulled me over for no reason, officer.
I stopped you because you were doing 40 and a 30, and you fit the description.
The description of what? Driving while black? My dash cam and your body cam are both...
Officer Kyle Brennan had been on the Philadelphia Police Department for 8 months, and he was convinced he had a gift. He called it a gut feeling, an instinct for spotting crime before it happened. His training officer, however, had used different words in his evaluation: overly aggressive, prone to escalation, and struggles to differentiate between suspicion and bias. But the department was understaffed, and Brennan, with his clean record and eager attitude, was cleared for solo patrol. It was that so-called gut feeling that took over on a cold April night. On a quiet stretch of road on the outskirts of the city, he saw a gold SUV driving at a steady pace. No erratic movements, no obvious violations, just a car moving through the night. But inside, Brennan's mind was already building a case. The driver was a black man in a hoodie. The vehicle was in a predominantly white, affluent neighborhood where, in Brennan's limited worldview, it didn't belong. He decided this was his moment to be proactive. That single, baseless decision would unravel his entire life, end a promising career before it began, and ultimately cost the city of Philadelphia $10 million. Because the man he pulled over wasn't a suspect. He was Special Agent Marcus Hill, a 15-year veteran of the FBI. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Special Agent Marcus Hill was one of the FBI's most respected agents in the Philadelphia field office. He had spent his career working in the counterterrorism division, a high-stakes world of classified intelligence, covert surveillance, and complex international investigations. He was known for his calm under pressure, his meticulous attention to detail, and a quiet integrity that earned him the trust of his colleagues and the fear of his targets. He had received 2 commendations from the director of the FBI for his work in disrupting domestic terror plots. He was a man who lived and breathed the law. That night, however, he wasn't Agent Hill. He was just Marcus, a husband and father driving home after a grueling 70-hour work week. He was exhausted. The case he was working on was reaching a critical phase, and he had spent the last 3 days buried in case files and strategic meetings. He had changed out of his suit at the office into a comfortable hoodie and jeans, looking forward to nothing more than a quiet night with his family. His personal vehicle was a modest, unassuming SUV he'd owned for 6 years. The perfect family car, practical and reliable. He was driving carefully, his mind replaying the day's events, when the sudden flash of red and blue lights filled his rearview mirror. He sighed, pulled over immediately, and waited, having no idea that the most dangerous encounter of his week was not with a terrorist, but with a rookie cop on a power trip. Officer Kyle Brennan saw the world in black and white, good guys and bad guys, and he was determined to be one of the good guys. At 24 years old, he was full of the kind of self-righteous certainty that often masks deep insecurity. He had joined the force to make a difference, to lock up criminals, to be a hero. He saw the older, more jaded officers at his precinct and privately dismissed them as lazy. He believed in proactive policing, a philosophy his superiors encouraged in theory, but had failed to adequately train him for in practice. For Brennan, proactive meant acting on his gut, and his gut was a product of a lifetime of unexamined biases. He had been patrolling the quiet residential streets of Chestnut Hill for hours, and the monotony was grating on him. Then he saw the gold SUV. His mind immediately connected the dots in a narrative of suspicion. Late night, expensive neighborhood, black driver. He ran the plates. They came back clean, registered to a Marcus Hill at an address just a few miles away. No flags, no warrants. A more experienced officer would have moved on, but Brennan's instinct told him there was more to the story. He followed the SUV for half a mile, waiting for any justification to make a stop. When he clocked the vehicle going 40 miles per hour in a 30 zone, he had his pretext. He flipped on the lights, his adrenaline starting to pump. This was it. This was real police work. The body camera footage captures the moment Officer Brennan approaches the vehicle. His posture is rigid, his hand resting near his weapon. He shines his flashlight into the driver's side window. "License and registration," he says, his voice clipped and authoritative. Special Agent Hill looks out, his expression calm. "I'm carrying federal credentials," he states immediately, his training dictating that he announce his status as a law enforcement officer up front. Here's my ID and badge. Brennan peers at the offered credentials, a leather case holding a gold FBI badge and a federal identification card. He scoffs, a smirk audible in his voice. Yeah, What is this supposed to be? The disbelief in Brennan's tone is palpable. In his mind, an FBI agent would be a man in a suit, driving an unmarked sedan, not a black man in a hoodie in a family SUV. This didn't fit his mental picture, so he rejected it as a lie. Special Agent Marcus Hill, FBI, Hill replies, his voice steady despite the officer's open contempt. I'm off duty, heading home. You pulled me over for no reason, officer. I stopped you 'cause you were doing 40 and a 30, Brennan retorts, and you fit the description. That was the moment the traffic stop ceased to be about speeding. Fit the description? Agent Hill's voice sharpens with the cold precision of a prosecutor. The description of what? Driving while black. My dashcam and your body camera are both rolling, officer. Should an officer's personal feeling that someone fits a description be enough to justify escalating a simple traffic stop? Let us know in the comments. Officer Brennan was now cornered. He had been challenged by a man who was not only unintimidated, but was also calmly citing the very tools of accountability that were recording their every word. Brennan's insecurity flared into anger. This man was making him look foolish. He had to reassert control. Sir, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle. For a minor speeding violation, I've already identified myself as a federal agent, Hill states, not as a refusal, but as a point of law. You have no legal basis for that order. Step out of the car now, or I will remove you, Brennan threatens, his hand moving from his belt to the handle of his sidearm. Agent Hill recognized the signs of a situation spiraling out of control. He knew that arguing constitutional law with an officer who had already abandoned it was a losing battle. He made a choice to comply to de-escalate. Okay, officer, I am stepping out of the vehicle. He opened the door slowly, his hands visible at all times. But Brennan wasn't interested in de-escalation. He was interested in dominance. The moment Hill was out of the car, Brennan grabbed his arm and tried to spin him around. Hands behind your back. You are making a mistake, officer, Hill said, his voice a low warning. He did not resist physically, but he did not submit to the illegal arrest passively. You are detaining a federal agent without cause. I suggest you call your supervisor right now. Brennan ignored the warning. He saw Hill's calm, verbal refusal to be bullied as resistance. He forced Hill's arms behind his back and snapped the handcuffs on, the metal clicking shut with a sound of finality. He had just arrested an active-duty FBI agent who had committed no crime other than to challenge a rookie cop's prejudice. It took less than 10 minutes for the chain of command to detonate. As Brennan was placing the handcuffed federal agent into the back of his patrol car, a supervisor, Sergeant Eva Rostova, arrived on the scene. A 20-year veteran with a no-nonsense reputation, she had been monitoring the radio and sensed from Brennan's tense voice that something was wrong with the traffic stop. She stepped out of her car and her eyes went wide. She knew Agent Hill, not personally, but by reputation. He was a legend in the local law enforcement community. Brennan, what in God's name are you doing? She yelled, striding toward him. Sarge, I've got a suspect here impersonating a federal officer. He's not impersonating anyone, you idiot. Rostova cut him off, her voice laced with fury. That's Special Agent Marcus Hill of the FBI. I've seen him testify in federal court. Take those cuffs off him now. The color drained from Brennan's face. He fumbled with his keys, his hands shaking as he unlocked the handcuffs. Agent Hill stepped out of the patrol car, rubbing his wrists. He looked at Sergeant Rostova with a weary expression. Thank you, Sergeant. Your officer refused to verify my credentials and arrested me when I questioned his illegal orders. Rostova turned on Brennan, her eyes blazing. You arrested a federal agent? Did you even look at his ID? Did you call it in? Brennan was speechless. He could only stare at the ground, the full, catastrophic weight of his actions crashing down on him. You are suspended. Effective immediately, Rostova snarled. Go back to the station, turn in your weapon, and wait for internal affairs. Your career is over. By the next day, the story was national news. The body camera and Agent Hill's dashcam footage had been handed over to the FBI and within hours leaked to the media. The footage was damning and undeniable. It showed a calm, professional law enforcement officer being illegally detained and arrested by a rookie cop who dismissed his credentials out of what could only be described as racial bias. The Philadelphia Police Commissioner held an emergency press conference. offering a profound apology to Agent Hill and the FBI. But the damage was done. The incident became a flashpoint, illustrating the very real dangers of racial profiling and the consequences of putting undertrained, biased officers on the street. The Department of Justice immediately launched a civil rights investigation into the Philadelphia Police Department. The FBI, furious over the treatment of one of its own, filed a formal complaint. Civil rights attorneys lined up to represent Agent Hill, and a federal lawsuit was filed against Officer Kyle Brennan and the city of Philadelphia. The lawsuit alleged racial profiling, unlawful arrest, and a systemic failure on the part of the department to train its officers adequately. It sought $10 million in damages. The city's lawyers knew they had an unwinnable case. The video evidence was irrefutable. The victim was a highly decorated FBI agent, one of the most credible witnesses imaginable. A jury trial would be a public humiliation. They moved to settle immediately. After months of negotiation, the city agreed to pay the full $10 million. Officer Kyle Brennan was terminated from the police force. The internal investigation revealed the red flags in his training file that had been ignored. He was placed on the National Decertification Index, ensuring that his 8-month career in law enforcement would be his last. He became a cautionary tale, a case study used in training academies across the country on how bias, ego, and insecurity can lead to disaster. Special Agent Marcus Hill accepted the settlement, but donated a significant portion of it to a foundation that provides legal aid to victims of police misconduct. He returned to his work at the FBI, but he also became a vocal advocate for police reform. He testified before Congress, using his own experience as a powerful example of why change was so desperately needed. "I was one of the lucky ones," he said in an interview. "I had a badge, I had resources, I had the full weight of the FBI behind me. But I keep thinking about the person who looks like me, who drives a car like mine, who wears a hoodie like I did that night, but doesn't have a federal badge to show. What happens to them? That's the question that should keep us all up at night." This wasn't just a bad stop. It was a failure at every level. A failure of training that didn't weed out a flawed candidate. A failure of a system that rushed him onto the street. And a personal failure of an officer who let his prejudice override his duty. The $10 million settlement wasn't just compensation for one man's violated rights. It was the bill for a lesson the city of Philadelphia had to learn the hard way. That the cost of ignoring bias is a price no city can afford to pay.